just within the last 2 months. And so there aren't any projects out there for us to point to and say, okay, their budget's held up and we don't need to worry about protecting our district clients. So we're making a recommendation that you consider this along with an inflation protection. And that inflation protection really has to do with the fact that if you should choose to go on in November, and let's say that, for instance, in November you're unsuccessful and then you have to go on to May, there's a cost impact, right? Every month that goes by has an inflation impact. If it should happen that we have to go on the ballot 2 times or 3 times in order to get something passed, inflation is going to keep moving. And so you start with your dollar being worth $1, but then in 6 months your dollar might be worth 96 cents, and then in another 6 months it might be worth less. So we want to make sure that there's something there to be able to protect you, because when you ask for approval from your community for your local share, that's your local share that says that as part of this agreement, you're going to meet the Ohio School Design Manual minimums. And so in order for us to be able to protect you to be able to do that, we want to make sure that there's some money there for you to be able to access if you should need it. The nice thing about including this as local funded initiatives is that it gives you control of that money. So you can choose to put that money into the project, you could choose to keep it outside the project and only add it in as you need to. And then ultimately you as a district can decide if you want to turn that money back over to general fund or pay off debt, whatever you choose to do if we don't use it. So it is strictly as protection. The last component that we have in there is for a soils import. If you remember, we were challenged at a couple of our sites, specifically the Sedalia site, as we're talking about this idea of raising out of the floodplain and moving dirt around. I want to make sure that we're protected to be able to do that. And so we're recommending a soil import protection of $400,000. So those two numbers together come up to be, I think that's almost $13.9 million. Again, you're not making action on that tonight. That is a recommendation for you to consider, but it is also going to be folded into the information when we talk about the financial components of this. So that's all the information I have to share with you. Again, approving the NOCA package tonight gets you on the agenda for the July OFCC meeting. And again, it's still up to you and your finance team and administrative team to decide on the timing of the bond issue. I'll entertain any questions.
I just remember, I don't know what the term was used in the past, but on the high school, when we built the high school, we had to have so much money that went into like a building fund for like repair and maintenance. Does that make sense?
That'd be the half mil
That
maintenance.
half mil, is
Mhm.
that included in this?
It is not, because ultimately you've met the requirements of that. These guys can explain to you why that is. But since you did that for the previous project, it's not a requirement for this project.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Okay.
something that you can choose to either continue with or to access
That
what you
the
have.
funds from that one.
Yes,
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah, there's still hazardous materials in that building. So ultimately, if, for instance, if above the ceiling there's pipe wrap and it's in good condition, you can occupy the building and not have to worry about abating that material. But if you want to take advantage of the state's share of doing that abatement work once we get kids out of the building, that's a possibility for you to consider, not a requirement. I think that there's still some abatement work required that's been listed as part of the overall assessment. I don't know the line items exactly, so I'd have to go back in to take a look at the assessment, but they are listed out there. I can send that to you. Yeah.
Also, what was the number? Roughly 17 people building the school.
Yes, I believe that's correct. Yeah.
So that's, my math is correct. Class size. I mean, I know the
yeah.
seniors.
Juniors and seniors will.
We've been telling,
Yeah.
but the district has been telling the public that that building has 2,000 people forever and 500. We're going to drop 20 minutes and only build up to maybe not having to put modulars.
I think that there are other factors that are kind of factoring into that with the 4,500 building and other programs that are potentially pulling students out of the high school that are potentially pulling students out of the high school, so that number that impact number that we were concerned about, I think potentially now is starting to be a little bit lower than that. So
That's correct. So we have Cruiser Excel going on at the high school. Or I'm sorry, at 4,500, and then we're also working on other development plans for school to work, career technical pathways. We'll be looking at some other spaces as well.
So the first part you mentioned,
300 that go to the career center. It's 150 students are right now assigned to Cruiser Excel. And then in addition to other programming that we're working on developing, we have about 300 students who go to Eastland Fairfield.
we have 300.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
So basically, we haven't had 2,000.
Our current enrollment has been over 2,000, but you're right. The students go to Eastland Fairfield, and we just opened Cruiser Excel this year, so that was a little bit of release of space.
My bigger close, so I'm going up in 20. Come back and
I understand what you're saying, but then what he just presented shows that we do the career tech in the next phase, which is for 445 students.
And that is
Increase.
because the state doesn't have the money.
Yeah, that's correct. We effectively are doing our best to max out the funds that they have available for you right now.
And the only other thing I have, like I shared last time, totally baffled, and I would like you to where 800 student middle school in Independence came. That blindsided a bunch of us here. Always a 500 student. I'd like to see the work product of the K. You said you were having
Now, I think what I explained to you is that as we looked at it, we didn't believe that getting middle school students onto that site was an appropriate use of that site. We felt that elementary school students on that site is more appropriate. There's just none of the things to support middle school students out there.
So
Yep.
given that,
Yeah.
you produced us a middle school plan for that site, not
No.
for every class.
No, we produced an elementary school plan for that site. No, not for 800. I don't believe. I don't think. I'll double check. I'll double check. I think it may be. Yeah, you may be right.
Middle school.
Yeah, not middle school, elementary school.
Okay, then
Yeah.
there's no way.
I'm sorry. I believe that is what we're showing. I'll double check the numbers though. Yeah, so it would be.
Crunched the numbers in that area.
Yeah.
It's 500. So, and that was K through 8.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're headed with that. So it wouldn't that elementary school that would be on that site would serve as one of the two North elementary schools, and so effectively it wouldn't just be for the kids of Independence Village. It would be pulling the entire northern half of the district into one of those two buildings.
Which isn't what the whole purpose of the discussion. We had a meeting. Was it was perfect for my, and it was million annual patients by Eli. That was our. So what happened to? I don't know.
I don't think that as we looked at that with the facilities team that they felt like that was a strong solution, but ultimately that solution's still on the table in the fact that it's part of the future segment, and so it's still something that can be open for consideration.
Who is they?
The facilities team. So ultimately that's still on the table for your future segment.
The final thing I saw that there was signed document
That's correct. Yes.
So we never
Who-
discussed, we never discussed that.
So go ahead.
The storm shelter provision was something that was added into OFCC 3 or 4 years ago. It adds a significant cost to the building. When I checked, I don't remember the exact percentage, it was 75, 80% higher.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
It's about, I think it was about $4.6 million over.
No, of the percentage of districts that didn't do
Oh,
this.
Yeah, no. So
But yeah, it was
so
a,
yeah, there are roughly 5 or 6 districts that have actually moved forward with actually doing a building that met the storm shelter requirements. And the storm shelter requirements, they were going to be a part of Ohio Building Code, and then they were pulled, and so they have not been effectively adopted by Ohio Building Code. So it's something that the commission has given districts an option to consider. And as I mentioned, of all the districts, all the buildings that have been done since that has been in place, which I think you're right, I think it's about 6 years, give or take. There are roughly about 5, maybe 6 total buildings that have been done. I think the districts have weighed the cost to their taxpayers over the risk, and I think the decision has been made to not proceed forward with that specifically.
When it comes to the high school, my initial observation, fortunately, we have no tornado. But if it was, it would be death by glass. Because we have 2 stories of glass at the end of every one, and we have open stairwells with glass and railing, and then we have this death pit in the middle of the intersections that I don't even know why it's there. That's full of glass that would allow airflow. So is any of that getting fixed in this construction? I know that that big circle in the middle of the spokes of the building is a major barrier, and it makes no sense from the security and safety. If a fight breaks out, it could be a challenge for a game. Right, I understand. Thing still. Any of that getting addressed in this construction?
It would not. The money that is being considered tonight is for co-funding and addition only. So there wouldn't be any dollars in for making renovations to the existing
Is
facility.
there an opportunity for safety and to look at that in this
There,
process?
there would be, but they would be a 100% local funded initiative at this point. They wouldn't be co-funded. Yeah,
Would not be covered.
that's correct. Yep. Because the commission looks at that building as a finished product, and so they're not willing to co-fund additional dollars to go back into the facility.
I still,
Yeah.
I think that's a discussion.
Mhm.
I still want that is a wide cover. So storm shelter rating, I understand hurricane and other states. But how will the new construction do reinforce 12-inch masonry?
The budget that we're trying to support would be comparable. Yeah, would be
It's gonna
comparable.
be concrete block,
That's effectively what the budget would be based on. Yes.
interior walls as well.
I think the interior walls. We've been doing a lot of demising walls as JIP, right? Demising walls, the walls between classroom spaces, has been done. There's a lot more. There's been a desire to be more flexible with those walls if they're not structural. And so to allow for districts to consider, future expansion or reconfiguration of classroom wings, there's been a lot more drywall metal stud in those demising wall areas. So we don't do as much concrete block. So,
So I have a question though about the storm shelter. You said that's for like hurricane, not tornado rated?
it's effectively, you're going to make me strain my brain because it was a while ago that I went through the training. The idea is that you create a space in the building that's big enough to house the occupant load of the building if you're building new, and for that space to be able to withstand 250 mile per hour winds effectively, and the projectiles that go along with that type of wind force. There's a rating amount of time that's supposed to be applicable to that. A lot of the strategies that I've seen in other states is that they typically try to do either a classroom wing or a gym because you need a space that's large enough to be able to house the occupants of the building. As I mentioned, a lot of school districts have just looked at that and have not proceeded forward with it because of the cost impact. I will say that it's not that there aren't other spaces that are available, they just don't meet that requirement. So for instance, if you think about some of the spaces like large group restrooms and some of the support spaces and those kinds of things that don't have exterior windows, those are the types of spaces that I see school districts sort of identifying as tornado safety zones, right? There are strategies, obviously, that can be employed that can create safer zones, but they're not going to meet that storm shelter requirement.
Currently, we've storm shelter, those wholly
Mhm.
but that's probably
Probably not.
So the other question I have is how was this document signed by the board before the board discussed it? By the board president?
This had to be submitted to OFCC for them to put the NOCA agreement together tonight.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm asking the board president, I guess, how can you make that decision without discussing it with us other board members first?
Well, we're discussing it now, and if there needs to be any change, we can discuss it at that time. Thank you.
Yeah, but this happened back on the 15th. It's
Let's
already
mention,
signed. It's already signed, right? It's already been submitted.
yeah, it was submitted.
I'm sorry.
It was submitted. You read it.
So,
Did we have discussion?
Not on the storm shelter piece, but on the NOAA action itself. Yes, we did.
Yeah, we approved the plan. We approved it.
Are you suggesting that you want us to have the storm shelter provision?
I'm suggesting that we discuss it before it's signed as if the board had already discussed it, a decision made by one board member. That doesn't seem appropriate to me. And I would think it's something that we would want for our district. We have our students in there and they have a safe space in the hallways and these masonry block hallways. And are those buildings rated at all?
Not for that type of wind rating, no.
Thing, discussion I would be having, not necessarily, but do not. Crappy, but promise high school building safer. I would personally definitely go first reaction on it. So I would want to discussion, at least making it a safer, or maybe interior, concrete, that kind of furniture. Uh, yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I didn't go say, hey, you're just one. That's a prior to signing.
No. And the one thing I would say is that a decision needed to be made on it so that the NOCA package could be completed. And so ultimately, if you as a district decide that you do want to include some level of protection, you could do that through the local funded initiative piece, right? So you effectively wouldn't meet the requirements that the OFCC is recommending as far as budgeting, right? But you could include some additional dollars in local funded initiatives in order to take that on.
And remind me, if you can,
Sure.
you said that the storm shelter rating is or is not covered.
It would be covered if you took advantage of the storm shelter dollars that they had available to you. It was roughly, if I remember correctly, it was about $4.6 million of additional cost across the buildings. Correct?
We waived that already. It's gone.
No, it needed, a decision needed to be made in order to put the NOCA package together. And so the decision was made, it was included, the NOCA package is in front of you. So ultimately, if you chose to ask them to go back and put the money back in, they would revise the NOCA package to include that.
And Mr. Kirschner, I recommended, and we can debate whether that was appropriate or not, but I recommended that we didn't do it because it sounded that it was the exception, that nobody was doing it because of the requirements and the costs to do that. I thought we were trying to build buildings as efficiently as possible, so if that's my mistake, but I think you're right. If we want to have discussion now about revisiting that, but we did have to, it's been a very tight time frame on getting documents back and forth
Yep.
with OFCC. So, you know, in hindsight, I don't know if we would want to call another special meeting to discuss a single item like that. I made a recommendation because there were not many other districts doing it. The cost was high, but I think if that's the discussion tonight, we could still change that.
I believe so.
Maybe I'm, you can tell me I'm all alone. I definitely state, and what other natural disaster? Because that's the hallway, drywall, and relatively steel studs. That's not it. So we're actually, in my mind, not in my mind, factually, knowing the construction, we're actually stepping down in student safety when it comes to storm protection. Whether that's addressed through the sharing plan or just need a hallway, that's, you know, look at that capacity, one way or another, doesn't 250 mile an hour necessarily, but I think that's storm like we have now. No sense. I don't think it makes sense.
We could develop an LFI budget for that pretty easily. Yeah, and wouldn't change the NOCA.
Well, I don't want it to be painted as if I just intentionally did not care about the children. We did make our, well, that's how it kind of how it was. Let's just be, it was. But as Jamie stated, we did ask him to be the person. We'd given him the permission to do so. He did his due diligence, followed up with me in order for us to get this package before us today for this meeting. That was the goal. So I'm fine with discussing further if need be. My understanding also, though, with the new builds, and I'm definitely not in construction, that would be my amazing husband, that is that we would find other ways to ensure students are safe, not that we would just put up flimsy walls, as mentioned, with a steel stud, that there would be ensured other options for our students for storms, for safety in general, dealing with storms or natural disasters. So when I signed that document, that was my understanding. But I'm open to any discussions that my colleagues might want to have. And if you would be so kind to possibly put that together, that would be great. But that was not the intention of myself, and I'm for certain our superintendent. We were just trying to be as efficient as possible. We know that passing bonds and levies are also important for our district, but also sometimes very hard. So we're not saying we're trying to cut safety. We were going to find other means for safety for our students versus with adding in this additional line item. But if you're able to put that together for us, sir, we greatly appreciate it. And then I can add this to the agenda for our next regular scheduled board meeting or any other one, if need be. And then we'll get some facts back if that's okay, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, and if you could give us examples of what other schools, the 80% that are not doing this or whatever, that if you can give us examples of how their safety is done for the tornado ratings.
Yeah, I was
Can do.
about to say the same thing. Just if you can give us some examples of the other districts, that'd be great.
Can do.
The other thing, I guess I'll say, in the topic of school safety, for anybody watching not here, we don't typically call the rotunda death zones and death by
Right.
tornado or death by glass, but I said we don't typically refer to the rotunda as death zones or death by glass.
At the high school.
But you know, there's many degrees of school safety, and you know, part of which is there's storm safety, as you mentioned. There's also access control safety, who can get into buildings and where, having doors on classrooms. So there's, from an overall picture of safety, I think it's our goal that we have our buildings in every way be safer than what they're in right now. Safe, dry, and warm.
But I agree. I see it, but I believe it.
And are we gonna discuss these other papers too, or is that right now? Are you gonna, cause some of them I noticed like, well, this one was behind the storm shelter one. They call out PK through 5 instead of K through 5. I took my finger off the button.
What page
So
are you
wasn't
on?
sure we have the stuff says
She's on page 1 of report generated for 14 May behind the storm shelter.
behind the storm shelter one, yeah.
One,
So that one says, yeah, it's segment 2 OFCC 7/11/2024 CB 8/19/2024.
top of page 1.
Yeah.
What about it?
So on it, it says that the grade placements are PK through 12 and PK through 5. I wasn't. They all say PK. I thought we weren't doing those PK through. Oh yeah, the yellow title. PK through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, and career tech. But I thought we were doing K through 5. Have we changed that to PK through 5?
If you'll remember, because it is the future segment, we went ahead and left the dollars in for the co-funded preschool spaces. So we left those in so that you have the discretion later to make a decision on that.
Okay.
And so ultimately, if you choose to continue with centralized preschool at Little Cruisers, or if you choose to decentralize, you have that option, but it's still part of your future segment.
Something else, and we just met with the city before this and went over the plan. Whether we like it or not, whether it makes sense or not, when whatever phase we're in, before the high school was built, there was a master plan created, and the high school was phase 1. In this phase 2, we had to do a full facility master plan for everything, and then we're looking for phase 2 for the 3 middle schools and the high school addition. In the next phase, there's going to have to be a master plan that happens again with updated to see if it's meeting and meeting our needs, if there have been enrollment changes or locations and things like that. And before that final phase would be approved, that master plan would have to be updated again, and we'll go through all of the steps and process that we're doing now. So, right, the PK is a placeholder from a space from the future standpoint, but ultimately, when we do this again the next time, we'll have another facility planning committee, and we'll look at what the district's needs are. So we'll in essence have done the master plan at least 3 times in these projects. Each time you do a new phase, you have to complete the entire master plan, even if you know you're not going to build all of the master plan.
Yes, thank you, because this was discussed at our last board meeting in detail for about an hour or some change about the future state, which would have to be relooked at all over again. So, are there any additional?
Yeah, there are more questions. I have new documents in front of me. That's why I have some questions that I'm asking that may have been already discussed, just to make sure I know what I'm reviewing here. So the other question is, we are having their money to abate Central and then abandon it. Why are we abating it if we're going to abandon it?
No decision has been made on what you're doing with that building. We're just making sure that you have the ability to take advantage of the state's co-funded dollar to abate. So ultimately, whatever the district chooses to do with that building, I mean, my expectation is obviously as long as Groveport Elementary is in operation, the kitchen and the student dining space, and I'm guessing middle school competition gym and all those kinds of things are going to stay as district operated spaces.
So abating central doesn't mean new furniture.
It doesn't have to. No.
And how do we, I guess we can discuss what.
Are there any more questions, Kathy?
One moment, please. Okay, so also on this resolution, it says the facilities assessment reports date from January 2008 with revisions from January 2014. So these assessments are 10 years old. They don't take into consideration any of the taxpayer money spent on new roofs, new air systems, new security entrances, new handicap entrances. None of that is taken into into consideration on the assessment.
Yeah, so they do a visual assessment, and that's what goes into, and that's what went into the document that you are looking at. And then ultimately, they just do what's called a desktop assessment. So they continue to update the costs year to year as the cost set changes. And ultimately, you make the decision if you're going to keep a facility and look to renovate it. To work with the commission and update that assessment if need be.
So to being 10 years old, we didn't feel the need that that assessment would need to be updated, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, we looked at the facilities that were under consideration, and we looked at the permanent improvement projects that had been done on those facilities, and they didn't really move the needle on the percentages when we looked at the percentages. So as a reminder, all the facilities were over the 66%, and some of them significantly, like the 80 and 90%. So even replacing a roof at $1 million isn't going to move that number down to get it much closer to 66%.
So it's not that nothing happened. You reviewed what was there, but
We did.
this is just based off those reports.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have right now.
Awesome. Yes, Mr. Treasurer.
I have one more slide I just got today, and these two guys, Mark and Jeremy, are here. They're part of the finance team, two different companies, but they both agree with the numbers. So it's nice to have two different companies both agree, and I'll let them talk about the actual ballot millage and stuff that we're kind of looking at with the numbers that we have right now. Currently, I just gave you that today. Mark and Jeremy. Mark Weekly and Jeremy. They're from Baird and from Baker Tilly.
Yep, good evening. Thanks for allowing us to speak here. We'll hope to keep it brief, but answer any questions you may have. Again, Mark Weekly with Baird. Recognize some faces. It's been a few years, but helped the district with several financings and refinancings from, I think, 2021 and 22. So pleasure to be back here.
I'm Jeremy Buskirk with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, and again, part of the financing team to just kind of walk through, as was mentioned, local share. So wanted to give a quick overview of what that might mean. So.
Yep. Thanks, Jeremy. So on the slide, we want to keep it very high level of what a bond issue would look like for the $77 million project that Josh just finished going over. And you'll see there the key components that would go on the ballot. You have the project amount, the term of 37 years, which that would be stretching it to the longest useful life available to go out. An estimated interest rate of 5.1%, and that's based off today's market rate. And if you think about it too, we're trying to set a rate now in the next couple months, but won't be selling these bonds the earliest until probably February or March of next year. So that's where Baird as your underwriter and Baker Tilly as your municipal advisor, we've come together to kind of get a pulse of the market, see what we think is best, and have come up with that interest rate. And then based off that in your tax base, that spits out an estimated required bond millage of 2.4 mils. And then we just wanted to show you down there, you can see what that means for a per $100,000 home, and then also for 166,200, which is your median home value per the U.S. Census Bureau. So again, I'll let that kind of sit for just a quick second as you look over those figures. But all that being said, estimating again 23 cents a day for the new project per 100,000 home, and 38 cents per the median home value. Anything to add on that real quick?
Yeah, and as Mark said, he kind of went through the different components. There are four, as you see. the assessed valuation. So that is the current one that we have been given by Franklin County. The project amount that comes from your construction folks, and the term is actually a calculation from bond counsel to look at the useful life of what is going into that project. 40 years for a building, so most of it is, as you would say, bricks and sticks is going to make up the majority of the project. And then, as Mark said, the finance team gets together and with that interest rate want to make sure that we're looking at what the market says right now, and and then that 2.4 mils is a representation of what that millage is to be able to provide that local share of the 77.2 million.
So when these bonds go out, will they be callable bonds?
Yep. Yeah. So 99% of the bonds are going to have some sort of call option with them.
Okay.
The only reason why you probably wouldn't have a call option if it was a really short term bond. So for in today's market, we've done as short as 4 or 5 year call option or as long as 10 years. And that's something that we can assess when ultimately pricing the bonds because there is a cost benefit analysis because the shorter the call, the more expensive it is. So that's something to be discussed down the road and doesn't have to be set until the day of pricing in the distant future.
Well, with the interest rates are high right now, we'd want to be able to make it callable so that way we can lower that interest rate when
correct. And
we're hoping they'll come down.
Just anecdotally over again a 37 year bond. If you think you have an 8-9 year call, you could refinance those bonds several times over the life of that. Just like with the 14 bonds that were issued, again, we refunded a portion of those, already, and looking to, if interest rates were in our favor, be able to do that again. So that's definitely a strategy item between the financing team once that time comes to see what's the best kind of cost benefit to be able to refinance down the road for the district.
Do you happen to remember or have what the amount was for the high school bond? What that percentage was? When it was based on the interest rate?
So backing into it, it was a 2.24 mils is what the representation rate was at that time. So millage wise, so backing into it with your assessed valuation at the time, I came up with about 5%.
What was our share for the high school? Adam, do you remember?
It was our debt was 33 million.
33.
So even though it was a 2.24 mil, only bringing in 33 million, now we're asking for 2.4 million, but it's bringing in 77 mil because our assessed value is now 1.7 million. I think it's on that sheet. Where back in 2014, it was probably 700 million.
Yeah,
so
a little over 700 million.
That's why people are out there going, how can you get so much money for the same mills? Because your assessed value so much. And that's where you come down to the 23 cents a day for a $100,000 house. That's why.
Thank you. That was my question, is how we could do that. Thank you.
Yeah, the assessed valuation back in 2014, when that would have been on the ballot, was 773,740,000.
Now it's 1.7 million.
The median cost is really 166.
It says it's according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So how accurate would that be? I mean, when was the last census? What year was that taken?
It's based off their 2022 estimates, which are the most recent. They came out December of last year. So to your point, there is a little bit of a lag, but that's the best and most accurate info and what most people go off of.
And if you're thinking about the current reappraisal, you're correct. It wouldn't be picking up that, but this is the most recent information that is available with the U.S. Census Bureau.
And just in terms of to clarify, in terms of the millage rate, again, that's off of the current this year 2024 assessment. So that is being captured in terms of the millage cost to the taxpayers.
Again, I just got this today, so there's nothing to vote on for this. It's just I want to get this information out as quickly as possible, and they were able to make it tonight.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Treasurer.
So I'm going to go back to this resolution though, because I do have a something. Could, the scope of work on the resolution that we're being asked to approve says.
Are you on the scope of the project? What page, Kathy?
There's no page number on it, really.
So it's the second page.
What's the page out of 114 at the top?
It's got to be two.
I don't have a second page, third page. I didn't have anything stapled together. I don't have a book. It was all loosely sent to me. So I stapled some pages together. It's this document right
It's on
here.
the website.
The
Can you,
resolution.
it's two. It's two. So scope of the project.
So we're on page 2.
Yeah, it's the resolution we're voting on tonight. So under scope of the project, it says, build 3 new middle schools to house grades 5 through 8, allowance to abate, demolish middle school, Groveport Madison Middle School North and Groveport Middle School South, abandon and abate with abatement only, allowance at Groveport Madison Junior High School. So we were just told it's not abandoned, but the resolution does say abandon on it.
Yeah, Kathy, that really comes down to OFCC's verbiage, basically. It's the way they're going to look at the middle school. So in the future, they're going to look at that building as not having K-12 population in it. So in their terms of thinking, it's an abandoned building and the fact that you're not going to have students occupying that building. It doesn't mean that you're abandoning it. No, in the grand scheme, it doesn't, because ultimately, in their minds, it means that they're taking it off they're taking it out of your portfolio, basically. They're saying that if there's no K-12 students in it, then once they get done with the abatement portion of it, then their responsibility there is finished.
But in another round of year, it's not,
Exactly. In another round of review, you guys could reconsider it. You could put kids back in it, any of those things. But for the time being, what they're saying is when we get finished with the 2 new middle schools being constructed, in their minds, there won't be K-12 students at Central. And so that building in their terms is abandoned. It doesn't dictate what the school district chooses to do with that building.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Mr. Treasurer, could you have roll call, please?
Mrs. Dowdleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Hi.
Mr. Kirschner.
to clarify, we are voting on resolution, participate page 2 of 2. Well, we are voting
Yes,
on
Josh said yes.
the
Page.
board item 2.
Mr. Superintendent will read the motion. Just one second if you
The-
stand by.
The recommendation, superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education to approve the OFCC NOCA resolution.
And so,
No.
And Ms. Walsh.
No.
All right, motion passes. On to item E, executive session.
So moved.
We have to have Mr. Superintendent read the
Super,
recommendation.
Superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, or demotion of a public employee of the school district in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22.
Go, Seth. So moved.
All right, Mr.
Second.
Bauer and Ms. Gray, thank you so much.
So who was that, Seth? And then
That
Libby?
was Mr. Bauer and Mrs. Gray, second.
Okay.
We could have roll call, Mr. Treasurer, please.
any discussion?
Mrs. Dowdleberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner, and Ms. Walsh.
All right, motion passes. The time is 8:25. There will be action after this executive session. time is 10:51. We've returned from executive session. On to the consent agenda.
Superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the consent agenda items according to the recommended actions.
So moved.
Second.
So I have Miss Gray first.
The consent agenda, I've asked, and I'll ask again, that the meeting minutes be removed from the consent agenda.
Yes, and I did send an email to canvass the board. I didn't hear back from you, John, but thus far, the majority of the board was okay with them staying. The majority of the board is okay with them staying in consent. By all means, you can pull them out if you like, Ms. Walsh.
Could you repeat that, please? That's not coming through there. I mean, I don't know. You sent an email today, you said?
No, I sent an email when you asked about it to John Walsh, and John Kirshner, sorry, John Kirshner, and board members, and was able to canvass the board. I did not get a response from Mr. Kirshner, but the majority of the board were okay with them being a consent agenda. So if that's something you wish to pull out, you can. But John, you do have an email if you were,
Yes.
it is in there. I don't know if you saw it or not.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't get a response, just so that way Kathy has that noted.
As I understand it, any one of us can ask for something to be pulled out of the consent agenda. So,
Yeah, that's why I said she could pull it out. No problem.
so you want that pulled out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just saying, you might as well pull it out at every meeting. I'm gonna ask for it at every meeting.
Very good.
So you're pulling out both meeting minutes, Kathy?
Item number 4. She said yes.
Okay, I didn't hear in the mic, so that way we have it for closed captioning and for the recording.
Yeah, pull out the consent agenda.
Okay.
And the meeting minutes, which is item number
4.
4. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Nothing? I just want to make sure before I go and then we get.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Donalberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirshner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
No.
All right, motion passes. And now we're voting on minutes, so that'd be Mr. Treasurer, correct?
The treasurer recommends the Groveport Madison Local Board of Education approve the minutes from the May meetings.
Are we doing each one separate? I'm sorry, just for clarification, Mr.
No,
Treasurer.
Both together.
Okay.
So you said May meetings first. Yep.
All right. Any,
So moved.
Second.
so I got Mr. Bauer second, and Ms. Gray first. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, so we received or at least I received, I think if all the board members were courtesy copied on that, an email from one of our public speakers. And after reviewing the recording, some of the things she said that are shown on the meeting minutes, that said, what she said was not what was on the recording. So for that reason, I don't think we should.
When was the email and who's it
So
from?
she included in her email,
Who's the email
that was
from?
Betty Elizabeth Simcox, and she put a note of a summary of what she said that she thought was more accurate. So
Who all did that go to?
When we get the email? When was the email sent?
4:13.
Okay, today.
thank you, Libby.
This afternoon.
I don't know. I'd have to open that up. I can't
What
read
did
what's being said then.
This afternoon.
We got the email, I think, this afternoon.
I'll
I
look.
thought you said 4:13.
4:13.
I was like, I'm
Not
in
April.
space.
Oh, he's
No.
thinking
I'm
4
going
o'clock.
way back
4
in
o'clock.
time. Never mind.
Today.
It's not possible.
So we got
It'll
it
be,
today before. Okay.
Maybe
I'll
in,
look at
in
that.
April.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh.
Sorry.
And in addition, I asked that something be attached to the meeting minutes from what I said, and it was not attached. There was a summary of what I said, which I appreciate, but I think if I have something, go to the trouble of writing up a statement, it should be attached. Also, some of the other things that in the past were attached were not attached anymore. So I thought that was different. That's different? We don't attach those anymore? Like to the meeting minutes?
Attach
Documents?
what, Kathy?
Pardon?
That's what.
Like the certified personnel that's being approved, the non-certified,
Not to the minutes.
those kind of things. We've
I don't
had those
remember being-
attached in the past. Well,
Was it
all of
prior
our
to?
board meetings have them.
I'll have to go back and look. Anything else? Any from anyone else, or did you have anything else?
Well, yeah, they're inaccurate, so yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's my state. That's all I have to say.
Well, regards to her statement, Mr. Treasurer, was there anything with the meeting minutes that need to be with the? Well, we just got that email today, so
Yeah, I didn't see Miss Simcox's email today, but where there is a 3 or 4 sentences about what she talked about with the other people, I did put that in there. What she talked about. Maybe not everything's in there, but the majority of what her statement was is in there.
No, we had agreed and voted that special meetings that include more than executive sessions would be recorded, but I don't know that that's happening. At least if it's being recorded, I don't know where it goes. It's not
I
going
thought
to
we
It's being
YouTube.
recorded right now, I believe, on YouTube.
yeah, I just watched it on YouTube. It's on. That's why I hit the gavel. I made sure that the screen was up, and we went from the board is currently in
So the
executive
May
session.
20th is on YouTube.
It's on right now. I'm
Not
looking
the
at it.
The May 1st is not, and
Oh.
the April special meeting is not.
We had the camera here, so we'll follow up with Mr. Nate on that. But we know that we both saw the camera, and I checked YouTube. So,
Great.
so you're looking for the recording, is what you're saying, Kathy? Correct?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the dates that you're saying we're missing a recording? I heard April, May 1st.
May 1st.
I think there's also March too, but I'd have to go back and look at.
So we'll just double
I
check.
know we
on-
only have one meeting for each month,
She said
Right
May
now.
1st and the special in April.
and
because we didn't discuss it until March, and I don't remember having a special in March, so we're okay there.
Thank you.
So Mr. Group's made a note. Thank you. We have that noted. Is there any additional comments or questions? All right, we can move to roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dotterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
No.
and Ms. Walsh.
aye. But I would say we did have a special meeting on March 20th, and that
So
was
you
in-
voted aye to approve
Motion
the minutes that you
passes.
complained about?
4-1. On to the next item, Mr. Treasurer.
The superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve 2 new job descriptions: high school summer school coordinator and high school credit recovery summer school teachers.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Gray as first and Mr. Bauer as second. Mr. Superintendent, is there any description you would like to share with us?
The high school summer school specifically is a credit recovery. And so this is just a coordinator and there'll be a teacher of each content area for the work to do that. Our other summer school programming is actually being paid for out of a grant with tutors. And these are the job descriptions for those so we can get them posted.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Just, are those the summer school, is it gonna be at Cruiser Excel? Okay, great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope. Thank you.
All right, hearing none, we can have roll call, Mr. Treasurer, please.
Mrs. Dotterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. On to item 2 from the superintendent's agenda.
The superintendent recommends that Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the memorandum of agreement by the Groveport Madison School District Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees Local 312 authorized year-round OPSE members to participate in the 4-day, 10-hour work schedule as offered to other employees of the district.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Graves first, Mr. Bowers second. Any additional comments from you, Mr. Superintendent?
It's pretty easy to read. It's an optional 410 workday where people choose this year. I'm going to be honest, and I've shared this with different groups. Um, I'm interested in pursuing this as an required option because this was done at a district where the treasurer was before, and they saved about $30,000 in utility costs by having the buildings shut down for the longer period of time. We're not losing any work hours, and so it's something I'd like to consider. That's not what this is about. This is about allowing OPSI members, because I can't direct deal with them and just say, hey, offer this. So giving them the choice to participate this summer on a voluntary basis.
I think that's often. Is there any restrictions? I know some organizations when they offer 410s, they say no Mondays and Fridays. Is it kind of fluid, or is it up to the discretion of the supervisor?
Actually, we're doing a common Friday off. When we tried to split it in past years, sometimes there was some frustration if a group of people didn't have the same people there because a person took a Monday or a Friday. There's only 3 days of overlap to try to get everybody there at the same time. So
Okay.
you're either there all 5 days or you're there Monday through Thursday for the 10.
Oh, so you're not giving them. It's either Friday.
Yep.
So it's with Friday.
And there are a couple weeks where we already have built-in holidays.
Okay.
That those are just the regular. Everybody works the regular. Everybody would work the same work schedule those weeks.
So I just want to make sure I understand this because what you said was kind of rush. Sorry. So this says that they must take Friday as their non-work day. That's what this document.
That's correct.
And which employees are these? Can you?
These are custodians. Any 12-month OPSI employee. This is making available as an option for them to do this. I'm sorry, I was speaking very quickly before. I apologize about that.
All right. Any additional questions or comments from the board?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hearing none. Moving on, Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call, please.
Mrs. Dotterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
Motion passes. On to the next item, Mr. Superintendent, for the HR specialist job description.
The superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Human Resources Specialist job description as attached.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gray first, Mr. Bauer second. Any additional commentary, Mr. Superintendent?
Not unless there are questions.
I would like to say job well done on the job description.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call, please.
Mrs. Dotterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Ms. Kirschner,
Aye.
and Ms. Walsh.
No.
All right, motion passes. On to the next item, Mr. Superintendent.
Superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the separation agreement and release with Mitzi Boyd.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Grace first, Mr. Bauer second.
Again, unless there are any questions, that's pretty
Yes.
easily understandable.
And yeah. We can have roll call, Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Dotterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Ms. Kirschner,
Abstain.
and Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, Mr. Superintendent, last one.
Superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the reduction in force of the contracts of employees in the following positions: HR Executive Secretary Certified and HR Secretary Classified.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ms. Gray first, Mr. Bauer second. Anything from the board? Hearing none, Mr. Treasurer, if we got roll call, please.
Mrs. Dotterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Ms. Kirschner,
Abstain.
and Ms. Walsh.
No.
Motion passes. On to I, other comments, announcements, and other business.
We have had one participant have an injury and is not available to attend Girls State, Boys State. So we do have one opening available pretty last minute. This is the first week of June, but if you know anyone who is a military candidate or government candidate or anything like that along those lines and be interested, who is a junior, that is open. And then also, I would like, if the board would agree, to invite the OSBA to discuss boardmanship somewhere in the summer, July, August, somewhere in there, and to help us strategize on how we can be more time effective with our meetings.
All right, I will see what they have available. And this is only on time. It's not on decorum and collaborating. It would only be for time.
I had something, I'm sure we've all gotten our legal notices, for, what's passed recently, but one of the things that I think we should get ahead of the game. It's not due till July of 2025, but it's the cell phone use policy. They said the state's gonna be giving us more updates on what they would anticipate looking at the, policy would look like. But they did give the example of Dublin, so if we could look at theirs and,
Yeah, it's also in our legislative update that we
And
got today. So
the
if you check
policy, I'm sorry, I didn't.
it's in your legislative update that we received via email. So if you check your email, it's there. You can follow the link, and it gives the two requirements of the law that we would definitely have to ensure will be in our policy, which is to emphasize that student cell phone use be as limited as possible during school hours, and number two is reduce cell phone related distractions in classroom settings. So those would be the main two items that need to be included in the policy. And I'm pretty sure,
What you were talking
yeah,
about?
cell phone,
Okay,
cell
okay.
phone policy.
but it's in our
Yeah.
email. We do have an email from
Yeah.
Yeah,
OSBA.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got another one
I had
today on it.
three
So,
on my mind. One was the LifeWise, and then the one that was discussed as far as vouchers or whatever we call that. So I wasn't sure which one we were talking about. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Some cell phone, maybe the opportunity to do away with some bullying and distraction and that kind of thing. So thank you, Libby.
I just had a couple things. Just wanted to give a shout out to the Girls on the Run coaches over at Groveport Elementary. They did a fantastic job with, I believe there was 12 girls that went through the program. And this past Sunday, 1,100 participants participated from all different school districts, including our school district, in a 5K. So I know my daughter was a part of the program, but it's an amazing program. Just wanted to say thank you to all the coaches of that. And it wasn't just about running, but also focusing on teamwork and self-confidence building. So really great job.
Did you say we had 12 participants?
I believe we had 12 participants.
Thank you. I just remember, how did we land on the bus rodeo? Do we know? Did we do anything? We had one guy go to state.
We had, yes, and I'm trying to think. I saw the posting. I want to say he was runner up, but let me check on that, and I'll make sure that it's in our next board
get an
update.
update on that at our regular meeting, right?
Yep. And then along with events, alumni dinner was this last weekend. Obviously tonight was a special board meeting. Tomorrow night's a band concert. Wednesday night is the Portrait of a Cruiser meeting. Thursday night is the Evening of Excellence. I think there's something on Friday, and I'm drawing a blank right now. It might be Golden Cruiser luncheon that we're having here, and then the football golf outing is Saturday. So if you're looking for something to do, we have lots of opportunities for you to do that.
And then just real quick, I did look up on our YouTube channel. It does look like the May 1st special board meeting was posted on there along with the May 8th as well. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. On to adjournment. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, John and Mr. Bauer. Mr. Treasurer, if we could have roll call, please.
Mrs. Duttleberger.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Gray.
Aye.
Ms. Kirschner.
I guess.
And Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
Motion passes. The time is 11:11. This meeting is adjourned.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So, since you're going to be here before the union gets here, you're going to the chair.
Yeah. Actually, I think I'll send that to Paul. I hope Paul doesn't come this time.
Oh, yeah.
But we have negotiations tomorrow. Yeah.